everyone. Hey, and welcome. Can you hear me? Number one, that's my first question. Just want to make sure you can hear me. If so, yes, please throw a yes into the page so that I know everything is going well. Hi, learner. Perfect. Thanks so much for coming. Can you hear me, learner, by the way? Hey, 7 pounds. Hey, lovely. All right. Well, perfect. Well, y'all already know I am so excited to be with y'all. So, actually, today is just going to be me. Okay. It's just going to be me rocking out with y'all this week. We are going to have lots of fun today. I know that y'all already worked with Ramon, okay, and worked on building out some technical documentation. And so today we are also going to be doing the same project, but we're going to be doing it just a little bit different. Hey, Ramon, welcome, friend. Oh my God, so much love in this community. I love y'all and I miss y'all. I hope you are thrilled to be here and thrilled to join us today. Okay, beautiful. Welcome, Key. Welcome. Thank you, Queen. All the love. Yes, y'all just give me so much joy, especially when I'm nervous. So I so appreciate y'all so much for being here. Alrighty then. Well, let's jump into it. I'm going to come through. Oh, come on, love. It's always fun to watch your streams. Thank you so much. I hope you have so much fun during these streams. That's my job, right? That's my role, is to make learning and development fun and exciting, right? Especially when you're newer to this field. I just always want to make sure that folk who are newer to this field feel as welcome as possible, right? Because there's so much that goes on to that frequently makes people think, oh, I'm not right for this field. I'm not quote unquote smart enough, or I'm not really getting the material. So maybe I should just pick a different field. But absolutely not, right? That is absolutely normal for everyone who goes through this. And what my mentor tells me, his name is Leon Noel. You'll probably find him in the Twitter streets. But what Leon used to tell us, I went through Resilient Coders Boot Camp as well. I'm a non-traditional engineer. But what Leon told us is that we're frequently going to go through what's called the trough of sorrow. So there's going to be highs when you're going through development and you're going to think, oh, this is the easiest thing in the world. I am a star at this work, right? Look at me developing and being so cool, right? And then you're going to go through the trough, a lot of the lows when you're really thinking, this is some hard stuff. I don't know if I could do this. I don't know if this is the right field for me. But what we want to normalize is that this is absolutely the right field for you if you do so choose it to be. And everyone, just like our wonderful learner says here, everyone has capabilities, and it's up to us to learn at our own pace. Okay. We're trying to make sure that we are learning at our own pace and we are not comparing ourselves to everyone else's journey. This is our journey. This is my journey. This is your journey. And we're going to focus on getting as far into these individual journeys as possible. So let's keep our eye on the prize and be proud of how far we've come. Welcome to week 4. Okay. Welcome to week 4, everybody. You've been doing this for 4 whole weeks. And that is massive. So you better congratulate yourself, brush your shoulders off, do what you got to do to stay proud, and know that we are proud of you as well. So let's get into it a little bit. Thank y'all again. So you see on my page here, I have our build a technical documentation page. I have this on my browser. I'm going to add it to the to the chat as well so that y'all can have that. And we'll go through it. We'll go through it together. So I know Ramon, we just had mentioned, Ramon went through building out some technical documentation for, I believe it was Flexbox. And so today we're going to build out a little bit of technical documentation based on databases, right? It's a lot of what y'all have tuned in for with the partner streams and trying to figure out, okay, like what is a database? Like what's the history of database? What are some different types of databases? Like why would I use a database in general? And so we're going to build all of that out. So we're going to be practicing a lot of that learning while we're building out this technical documentation page. So get comfortable, get your laptop, get a little snack, and we're going to get into this for the next couple minutes. So hope you enjoy. All righty. So let's dive in. Okay, so our goal here is to build a technical documentation page. Yes, we're so excited to have you, learner. Thanks so much for coming. All right. So our goal is to build out a technical documentation page, and we're trying to build an app that is functionally similar to this page right here. So let's link and see. Okay, so we have this JavaScript, which is JS, JavaScript documentation page. I'll make it a little bigger for folk to see and read. So we have an introduction section, which gives a little bit of background about JavaScript, what you should already know, these various areas of Java, both JavaScript and the page itself. Has a couple different code snippets and things that can help people understand. But the real focus here is that we want to make sure that we have more of an introduction page, and then what we would call some list items here, or some clickable list items, just to break down the page, right? The content and the structure of our documentation, because that's also what's really important, right? So when we build out documentation for other folk to read, especially when you're writing your code and you might be writing code on GitHub, it's really important to allow and let other people to be able to follow you, right? To be able to follow, what are you doing? What are you coding? What did this code represent? And that is a lot of the reason why folk are really, really adamant about writing what we call good documentation, clear documentation, right? Making sure that as many people can come into whatever code that we just wrote and have any background that's necessary in order to understand that code. So for example, like if we talk about Couchbase, for example, if I were to just give you all some code from Couchbase, you'd be like, what is this? Right? What are you doing? What is this? What am I supposed to do with it? Why are you giving it to me? Right? What's the background that I need in order to understand this Couchbase code? And that is why we write documentation. The documentation is so important. And some devs might even say it's more important than writing really clean, really clear code on your side. So they say documentation is so important, and that's why we want to write clear documentation. Now, I do want to stress that I am not a technical writer, or let me change that up. I am not yet a technical writer. Okay, so let's talk about aspirational skills that we want to practice. I am not yet a technical writer. However, I will be soon. And after today, you all will be, because you would have written some documentation. So I want to give a shout out to the wonderful technical writers and developer advocates that I know. One of them is the Laura Langdon. She's often in these streams, but she has given me so much of the expertise and experience with regard to technical writing. But we're going to give this sometimes what they call the good college try, which just means you're going to give it your best effort in creating some documentation, so that at least when other people come onto this documentation, come onto this page that we're going to host on Netlify, and I'm going to give you all the code for on GitHub, when other people come and they're like, now, what is a database? Like, can you explain that to me like I'm 5 years old? Or can you explain that to me like I have never even heard of a database before? We're going to be able to build out the documentation for that. We're hopefully, when they come onto that page, they'll get a sense of what a database is and what it does. So that's our goal for today. Alrighty. So, yep, we see this example here for JS documentation, and then we're going to start building out our own. All right, so as we can see here, we have a number of different user stories. And as we had mentioned, and Ramon had went through it as well, as we mentioned, user stories are just like the little check marks that you have to achieve in order for a certain bit of functionality to work on your specific page. So we're going to start off here. The first user story that they're asking for is that you see a main element with a corresponding ID of main doc, which contains the page's main material, the technical documentation. So let me just close out this preview section really quickly, just while we're building out this, and I just clicked it here, just while we're building out the structure of this page while we get started. So even before I dive into this main element that they're asking, let's get the structure of our HTML page down packed, right, on the page first. So what we're first going to start off with, as we all know, when we start off with writing an HTML page, we have to notate what kind of page this is, right? Is this CSS page? Is this a CSS document? Or is this a JavaScript document? Or is it HTML? So you have to tell the page what kind of document it is. And we're going to notate that by saying, going to do the caret and then what they call a bang, which is also just an explanation point. We're going to write doc type. See, doc type, that's short for document type. It's HTML. HTML. Perfect. All righty. So we're going to start off there. That tells our computer, okay, this is an HTML document. Keep going. Then we're also going to put a little bit of what they call boilerplate code, which just means like some standard, when you start off a document, HTML page, this is the standard things that you're going to include when you're first starting it out. So we're going to type HTML, and then we're going to let us know what language that we're going to be writing this page in as well. And so we're going to set the lang equal to English. But you can set this lang to whatever language that you want to use, or whatever your primary language is as well. Mine just happens to be English. Okay, so we can set the lang here, and then we can also make sure that we have the rest of the structure. So let's create a head element. I'm gonna write head here, and whatever we open, we always should close. So let me close out this head, and let me also close out this HTML element as well. Actually, I don't think we might have to. I think, yeah, let's close it out. HTML. Boom. Perfect at the end of that. Sweet. All right. And so we have our head and our head element. And so our head element, we should throw a title into that head element, which is going to actually give us the title of the page, right? So it's going to tell us what we're writing here. So let's throw a title into that head element, title. And whatever we open, we must close. And that title for this can be, we're going to be talking about databases today. So let's have the title be database documentation. Or what is a database? That'll be the title. All right. So we have our head element that opens and closes, title element that opens and closes, and then we have our HTML and our doc type all set. Beautiful. All right, now we can get into actually seeing some code show up in our preview. All right, over here. So let's type out. We're going to put that all in a body tag here, and remember, whatever we open, we always close. So body tag. And then everything that's in your body tag is what's actually going to show up in your preview. So for example, I type something like here, boop, it just showed up to the right. Oh, yes. And Learner just provided a really, really incredible fun fact. So fun fact, the doc type comes from XML document type definitions. XML document type definitions. And if you don't know what an XML document type definition, this is a perfect moment to utilize those research skills. Remember, software engineering is so much about both researching and learning as it is about writing code. So if you don't know what an XML document type definition is, go into your browser of choice and type in XML document type definition. And that can give you a little bit more background on what it is. Thank you, Learner. Always providing that history for us. We so appreciate you. That's right. Got a link? A link would be wonderful if you are able to provide it. Lovely. And in the meantime, we're just going to keep going here. Okay, so we see anything that shows up in the body is going to actually show up in the body here. So, okay, Learner said give them a few minutes. They're going to try and come up with the link for us about XML doc type definitions. Beautiful. All right. So we have our body tag, and we haven't even started our user stories yet, and that's okay, right? That's okay. We're just setting up the structure for our entire page, all right? So we have our body tag, and then what we also want to put in our body tag is the header for the entire page, okay? And there's a difference between headers and heads, all right? The head is a part of what they might call some of the metadata for your page. It's not going to be shown to the user. It's just going to give some of that background information about your page. But the header will be shown. So we'll type header here, open and close it. Header, perfect. And let's add, and I like to have things very even. Let's add, make sure those are even. Yep. So the header, we can make that, we can add another element in there, which is a navigation bar. So we're going to throw a nav in here. And all of these details that I'm using, these details are not specifically boilerplate, right? These details are just things that I'm thinking of while I'm coding here, but you can add whatever you want. It is good to have a header on your page at least, but inside that header, you don't have to have a navigation bar. You can have whatever you want. So we're going to add a nav there and then close out that header. And then now we can start off and get into some of the user stories here. So we see here that it says you can see a main element with a corresponding ID, main-doc, which contains the page's main content. Wonderful. So we're going to create a main element here, main, and then they want an ID of main-doc. So we're going to include ID equals quotation marks, main-doc. And yes, an excellent reminder here. Thank you so much, Ahmad. Head, header, and heading are all different things. That is absolutely correct. So it's going to be super confusing. It can be super confusing when you're like, oh, like, didn't I already put my header up here in the metadata? No, you put a head up in the metadata, which is different from a header and a heading. So if you need more information about that, again, we're going to use our research skills. What's the difference between a head, a header, and a heading? Feel free to look that up and throw it in the chat. Let us know. Thank you, Ahmad. And Learner included the link. Thank you so much, Learner. You are the best. Wikipedia.org/wiki/document type definition. Beautiful. So feel free to go to Wikipedia and type in document-type-definition, and we are able to add that. Yeah, and then you can go ahead and look at more information behind that. So going back here, thank you so much, Learner, as always. Going back here to our user story, we're adding the ID equals main-doc. I'm going to close this out and make sure that we close out our main element as well. So you can see a main element with a corresponding ID of main-doc, which contains the page's main content. Perfect. So all of our content is going to be within these two tags. This main tag and this closing main tag. And just to make sure that we've done that correctly for the user story number 1, let's run some tests. Excellent. So we got our check mark. You should have a main element with an ID of main-doc. Perfect. So we're going to keep going. All righty. So main, and then next it says that within the main-doc element, all right, within the main-doc element, you can see several section elements, each with a class of main section. There should be a minimum of 5. All right, there should be a minimum of 5. So there's lots of different ways to do this. You can either just create 5 different section elements, and that's okay. You can also do this in more of a what we call a semantic way, and make sure that we have like some H1s, H2s within your section to really delineate out what levels we're supposed to be on. So right here, before we even get to the main-doc element, or the 5 section elements, I'm going to create our first like overview, our H1, our main H1, that's going to say to us, like, what is this page about? Like, what's the most important thing that we need to write here? And I'm going to throw that into an H1 and then a closing H1. And that is going to say, I'm just going to repeat this title down here. What is a database? Woo, what is a database? I'm going to throw that in our H1. All All right. So beautiful. We have our H1 handled, and then we can create our sections. So let me create 5 different sections. We're going to do section, and then we're going to do a closing section as well. Oh, remember, those are the same section, by the way. And let's see, what did they want on that section? They wanted it to have a class of main dash section. All right, so I'm just going to copy and paste that, and I'm going to write class equals main dash section. Oh, but what am I missing, y'all? I'm missing something. I'm missing my quotation marks. Excellent. So now it knows that this section is going to have a class main dash section, and I'm going to create 5 of those. So I'm just going to wrap these. So we have the first one there, and I'm going to create some more. 1, 2, and I like things to always be even. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Excellent. So now we have 5 things that contain the class of main dash section. And let's go down. Let's run the test and see if we get, oh, look at us. Okay. We got a couple extra ones just because. All right. So you should have at least 5 section elements. Boom, it passes. And then all of your dot main dash section elements should be section elements. So we see this dot notation here. That's signifying to us that we're going to be doing some things with CSS in a bit. And that's okay. We're just going to pause. It is looking into our HTML and looking for those main section elements to be sections. They are, but we've achieved something that we haven't yet done in CSS. But that's going to be great. Okay. And 7 pounds asked, what's the YouTube channel? So the YouTube channel that this is being streamed on right now is both on the Bad Website Club YouTube channel and the Couchbase YouTube channel. So if you look both of those into Bad Website Club, into YouTube, look up Bad Website Club and Couch, or the page Couchbase. This is being streamed on both of those right now. And eventually, Nyah Macklin Dev is going to have a YouTube channel as well. So I'm really excited to showcase that off. Okay. And then Learner has a question as well. How to make indenting easier in Freed Codecamp? Ooh, Shift-Alt-F. Yo, Learner, you're the best. Like, you're always coming up with these awesome tools. Shift-Alt-F, all right, is a tool that you can do to make indenting easier. Thank you, Learner. Appreciate you. Love it. Yep. And 7 pounds gave some love, some thumbs ups. All right. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So we have our sections. And then we also achieved this last one. You should have at least 5 main section elements that are descendants of main doc. And so we know that descendants means that it's a child element, which means it's not only just indented in, but it is a child of that. So we have our main, which closes, and then our sections are children of that main. Excellent. We've achieved all of that. All right, let's keep going. So we were on number 2, and then on number 3. The first element within the main section should be a header element, all right, which contains text that describes the topic of that section. Okay, should be a header element. All right, so within the first element within .main section, okay, here we are. Main section should be a header element. Excellent. So I know y'all had brought up this with Ramon as well. It's like, wait, can we have headers within sections? I thought we only had to have one header up top. And actually, we can, right? We can, because headers, in a way, if you think about this concept called scope, headers can be scoped or limited in some way to the section that they're in. So you can have headers within these smaller sections as well. So it's asking us to put a header element within it. So let's do that. Header, perfect, header, and then closing header. Wonderful. So we have a header and then a closing header, and we want that to be in every, let's see, the first element within each section. That's right. So we're going to throw that into every single one. So that's that first section. Then we're going to throw it into that one as well. And then the other, and then the other, and then the other, and then the last one too. Lovely. All right. Which contains text that describes the topic of each section. Love it, love it, love it. That's right. Exactly, Learner. So each part Each logical part has its own header and content. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And exactly correct. Lovely. Okay, so we can see, and let's go back to section 3. The first element within each should have a header which contains text that describes each topic. All right, so we have the headers. All right, and so what we want to do is include the, like, what are these sections going to be? So we're going to start off overall about what is a database. So the first section can be, if you're trying to figure out what is a database, one of the first questions that you might ask yourself is actually, what is data? What is data? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually change this H1. It's not just because all of these questions are not just only going to answer what is a database, but it's going to talk more about database. You know, if we were to do the documentation for databases, this would be that documentation. So the H1 is going to be like database documentation. And then for our header here, one of the first questions that we can ask is, what is data? All right. So if you don't know what data is, you might need, let me step back. In order to know how a database works and what it is, you might have to take a step back and ask yourself, what is data? All right. And then for another section, then I would then take another step back and say, all right, now that I know what data is, can you tell me, and remember, I'm just thinking aloud, like what are the steps to trying to figure out this problem? But can you tell me, what is a database? What is a database? All right. What is a database? Perfect. What is data? And then what is a database? And so another section then, all right, so we have what is data, what is a database? Then we can ask, like, if you wanted to know, you can see about what's the history of databases? Like, how have they been used in the past, right? Have they been used in the past? So for our third section, we're going to type out history of databases, like how have they been used in the past? And then we can break down the different types of databases. Because you might not have known there are actually lots of different types of databases. And so we can get into that as well. And then lastly, we can talk about the differences between and we'll learn about this when we get into different types of databases. But these two large parts of databases, which is, what's the difference between relational databases and non-relational databases. Perfect. All righty. Perfect. Y'all give me 1 second, just a hot second. All right, perfect. So let's get into it. These are the 5 sections, everyone, that we're going to be diving into. And so we can see this preview over here. Excellent, lovely. Let's just hide this preview so we have a little bit more space to work with our HTML. Okay, and we have a question as well. When do I need which kind of database? Exactly. It seems like the most important. You're right? You're right, learner. Like, when do you need which kind of database? So when we actually get into what are the different types of databases, that's going to help us get more into, like, well, when would I choose one versus the other? So excellent point. And then learner also had mentioned, I think we might want to make the header text H2/other logical headings for semantics and screen readers. Yes. You are the best. That is correct. Perfect. So let's go back through this and not just have like a floating header text. Let's actually wrap these in H2s. Learner is on it, y'all. Learner is on it. So let's wrap this text here in an H2. And we're going to write, boom, H2. Perfect. And we're going to close it. Lovely. And we're going to do that for every single one. Because just like Learner said, it's important to focus on semantics and making sure that folk with screen readers can thoroughly read our text. Beautiful. And this is H2, so we're going to do that for all of them. H2s, lovely. And then H2. I guess this would have been easier if I had done this initially, but that's okay. The structure. All right, so now we're almost done here. Perfection, boop/H2. Great. And also, that's a little bit hard to read even here. So what I'm going to do is press enter right before the first H2 so that we can see the levels here. beautiful. All right. Love it. Ooh, this is really interesting. So Ahmad, who's always coming through with some excellent knowledge. So Ahmad says, data has no meaning on its own, just numbers and strings, and information can be generated using data, and then it has meaning. Excellent point, Ahmad. Like, you are always on it, and that's what I appreciate. We're going to get into that in a little bit, right? Like, what is data? Actually, we can get into that right now, right? So what is data, right? This really big question. So what's the difference between, right, just data and just regular information flowing throughout the world? And so how I think of data, right, as I think of data as these individual or these small like individual facts or values, right, that can convey information, right? So, but it's the collection of those things. So I would say that for under this H2, I would write a paragraph tag here and then describe out what is data. Well, how would y'all describe data as well? Throw it in the chat. How would you describe data? Ahmad just gave us an excellent example of how he would describe data. And for me, I would describe it just in terms of, I would say data is a collection of individual facts or values that can convey information. All right. So data is a collection of individual facts or values that can convey information, right? So a collection of those things. All right. So if we go to our preview, we can see perfect right here. Data is a collection. Lovely. And how, yeah, in your regular life, like in what ways have you used data every day, right? So you probably know me. If you follow me on Nyah Macklin Dev on Twitter, you know that I'm constantly putting out different tweets, right? So those tweets are examples of data that is collected. Well, I'll get into that later, but it's different pieces of data that when all, it all amalgamates to provide some online version of who I am. And we have an example here as well, another example from Learner, who says that data for them is a bunch of symbols that we can use to perceive, understand, or analyze information about ourselves and the world. I love that definition, honey. I love that definition. What I'm going to do is I'm going to amend my definition to take that into consideration because I love that so much. So perfect. Data is a collection of individual facts and values. And then I'm going to say that we can use to perceive, understand, and analyze. Analyze about ourselves and the world. That is I love it. I love the energy. Thank you, Learner. And I'm just going to put down here, from our influenced, I'll just say from incredible at Learner 0418. Yay! Thank you, Learner. You are the best. I love that example. Absolutely. So yes, what also are different ways that you all would describe what is data? What is data? All right. So yes, data is a collection of individual facts or values that we can use to perceive, understand, and analyze about ourselves and the world. That is our collective definition of data. Love it. Perfect. So then moving on next, what then is a database, right? What is a database? And we're going to put this into another P tag as well. Opening and closing, of course. And then when thinking about the data being the collection of individual facts or values, I personally think of databases as the organized collection, right, of that specific data. So data just existing, right? Data can exist, blah, 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 out in the world, but databases put them all into a singular place, right? Into a singular place. It's a place that can hold, store. You can what they call query data, aka look into data, peer into data. You can look at specific pieces of data, and then you could take a look and then put them back and say, okay, that was cool, right? That data's right there. So here I would describe as a database. And how would y'all also describe databases? I know we have some experts in the chat. So how would you describe a database? And maybe we can come up with a collective working definition of databases together. Bad Website, Claude, Couchbase, and our learners together. So for me, my first definition would be that a database is an organized collection of data, or what we would call structured information. Of it. Ooh, learner also hit us with another definition. So a database seems like different banks where this is interesting, where instead of money you organize, store and use data from instead of money for various purposes. Okay, so a database seems like different banks where instead of money you organize, store, and use data from instead of money for various purposes. So I'm trying to wrap my mind around what's being said here exactly. Store and use data instead of money for various purposes. That's right. Okay, so a database, if we're going with this bank analogy, right? Instead of like money being the thing that you're trading and storing and organizing, it's actually just data, right? Pieces of information that you're storing, trading, organizing, etc. So that is an excellent analogy. Thank you so much, learner. Oh, that's okay. That is okay. Friend, we are all working on these definitions together. So never apologize. Love it, love it, love it. All right. Beautiful. So, okay, before we even go, well, actually, let's keep going just a little bit. Let's finish out these last three before we dive more into finishing out this code. But let's then go into, and we're all learning together as we say here, but let's make sure that we also tap into, and we can see our preview. Love it. Excellent. The history of databases. Okay, so this is a little hard because I had to do a little bit of research myself in order to learn more about the history of databases. But what I at least want to have you all thinking about is like, what are some ways that you think, and we said that a database is an organized collection of data. What are some ways that you have used databases, or really just the organized collection of data, even without computers, right? So there are lots of examples in which we organize data even without the use of computers. And when I think of how I've organized data without computers, like before I had my first laptop, which was in high school, my principal bought me my first laptop. Even before then, what ways do we organize data? Yes, Ahmad. So Ahmad said a file system. That is exactly correct. A file system is a way that you can organize data prior to the use of computers. And there's lots of different examples. So I'll place them here as well. We're going to throw in another P tag. P tag, boom, P. Well, we got to boop, end it. That's right. While y'all are coming up with the different ways. Yup, folder structure. Oh, man. And this is really interesting because if you were using a computer right now, then you know that your computer is made up of files, right? It has a file system and it's also made up of folders, right? These file folder systems are very, very similar to what databases are doing. So thank you so much, Ahmad, for bringing all of this up because this is so integral to what we're learning right now. And history of databases, right? So there's many different ways that people have used databases even before computers existed. And that is, inventory lists, right? If you think of, I need to take note of how many of X item that I have, that's an inventory list. It has, the name of the item and then the number of items, right? And then there's also like catalogs. So if you ever go to a library or have access to a library, there's usually a library catalog in which you can try and see, what exactly exists here, and then how many of those things are available. And then we use grocery lists as well all the time. So what do I need? What do I have? What do I need? What are the different things there? And then Learner has gone above and beyond and given, that is the exact point that I was about to get into, Learner. So I'm going to show this on screen as well. So the history or the background behind databases is that in the 1970s, all right, E.F. Codd started the relational model of databases. And we're going to get into below what a relational model versus a non-relational model is. But we're going to get into that in a second. But before that, files and linked sets of files like codicil used to exist. So over time, we've invented lots of ways to efficiently store and maintain our data as per our needs, documents, files, and files of various kinds, etc. That is it. That's right. So that is some of the core history. So even before the 1970s, things like databases were being used, but they might not have been called databases. They might have been called like inventory lists or spreadsheets. But after the 1970s, we've really dove into what a database is, right? And learning about the difference between spreadsheets and databases. So there is a lot there. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so lovely, lovely. All right. So as we were saying, the history, a lot of the history and the background and the evolution of databases. But we can say here that databases have evolved dramatically pretty much since around the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, since the late 1960s. Exactly. So we used to have purely relational databases, but then we used to have purely relational databases. And we're going to get into the difference again in a second. And now we have about, dozens of types of databases, right? There's so many different types of databases, and I can include like just a few of those types here. Are we going to? Yeah, I knew it. We're going to get into the types of databases here. So this is just a small introduction to this. Ooh, Jane, excellent question. That's a great question. So Jane had asked a little bit of a tangent here. Good info. What about AI related to coding? Yeah, there's lots of ways that AI can help with encoding. So AI, for those who don't know, stands for artificial intelligence. And so how is it related to coding? There's lots of ways that AI can assist with your coding. And there's lots of tools. For example, GitHub Copilot, for example, is one. People use ChatGPT to help with their coding as well. And there's lots of ways that you can use AI to even like create technical documentation pages, just like this one that we're building out now. So great question, Jane. And then Learner also said, based off of what I read on Wikipedia, and the red book, which is readings in databases, I feel like it would have been more painful for whoever was involved in bookkeeping. And that's exactly it, learner, right? Searching through databases initially, before we had these now very small computers that are able to do what supercomputers had to do. Now that process is so much easier, right? Because when we had first started off with databases, they had to go in order of the, for example, of the queries. And they were very early versions of what databases are today, but they weren't able to be as flexible as a lot of the databases that we see today, and specifically as well as Couchbase, right? Couchbase is a highly flexible, specifically a non-relational database, and we're going to get into the difference in a bit. Couchbase allows you to have all of that flexibility, whereas for relational databases, you might have a lot less flexibility. And just like Learner said, it was a lot harder for your bookkeeping or for your work in order to have to go through your documents in a very specific way. But that's a little bit more about the history. Yeah, that's excellent. Okay. So, and Ahmad has another thing here. I remember I visited a library with a wall of drawers, each one for a specific type of books. In each drawer, there were cards with reference to the book's name and location. That is huge, because that is a physical example of what databases are. That's actually really, really cool. Thank you so much, Ahmad. That is a physical example of what databases are and what they do, right? They help you to locate specific parts of your data set and information. And that is really exciting. So we have this here, lots of background with regard to databases. And here we are as well. We have to talk about what are the different types of databases, right? So what are the different types of databases? I'm going to include another paragraph tag here. Actually, let's include some LIs. We'll do a unordered list. So we'll do a UL, and then we'll have some LIs here, and we'll click it, LI, perfect. Yes, Learner is on it, helping me out. Perfect. Yep. And we'll do a couple more LIs. Boom, 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 boom. And then we'll close out this UL. LI, boom. And then we'll close out this UL. Boom, boom, boom. Unordered list. So the different types of databases, and Learner has a list of them as well here. So we have referential databases, which is very similar. Okay, so perfect. We have referential databases, relational databases. So I'll add relational here. And remember, everyone, there are so many different types of databases, at least a dozen, probably more. But we're just going to go through some of the biggest ones that I have seen and that are most commonly used within the database space. So we have relational databases. There's also a thing called hierarchical databases. Right? So we have relational, hierarchical. There's also object-oriented, just like Learner had said, object-oriented databases. Object-oriented databases. And then there's these things called non-relational. Yeah, NoSQL, non-relational. And remember, non-relational is what Couchbase is, non-relational databases, which is another term that people say for that is N-O, no, and that's SQL, NoSQL. Some people say just SQL, some people say SQL, some people say that calling it SQL is wrong. There's lots of what I call nerd wars about that, but non-relational databases as well. All right, so perfect. We have our different types of databases, relational, hierarchical, object-oriented, non-relational, right? And then we're going to get into a little bit of the difference between relational here and then non-relational down below. So just to give y'all some background about relational versus non-relational, and again, keeping an eye on the time, we're going to continue a lot of this process tomorrow as well as the next day. But I just wanted to make sure we had the structure of our technical documentation down packed. So we'll click preview here. Yeah, and we see, yep, all of our information right here, types of databases. Beautiful. Okay, so within this we have our UL and our LIs, right? And then unordered list, perfect. And so a relational database, and yep, as y'all already know how it works. Like if you're like, what is a relational database? And you don't want to wait for me to get to when I get to relational databases, go ahead and throw it into your browser of choice. What is a relational database? And try to come up with an answer for yourself. And then let's see if we can come together with our collective answers. So here, relational databases, is a fixed structure. It's just on it. And I love that. Perfect, easy, simple solution here. So relational database has a fixed structure data, right? So it has a fixed structure for its data. Use a description list here instead of, ooh, yeah. Would it be better to use a description list here instead of just a UL? That is an excellent point. So let me see. I haven't used description list before. Description list HTML. Let me see the DL. Perfect. Okay. And y'all already know the Mozilla Developer Web Network web docs are always an excellent resource. So, okay, this is cool. So you can do description lists, and then I'm assuming DT, is that description table? DT, yeah, I think so. DT. Okay, so description lists, and then cool. That's the overall thing, and then beautiful, and then the actual description. DT is term. Thank you, description term. You're the best. Let me add that as well. Description. Beautiful. Okay, so description list. And yes, I would love to do that. DD is definition. I love this. All right, so let's do a description list instead of some ULs. So that'll be, I think we start off with a DL, right? Description list. DL, and we're going to change this UL to be DL. And then we're also going to change these to be description term. Nice. Description term, which will be relational, description term, relational. And then we're going to move this description definition, just as they said, learner said, description definition. We're going to do, that's the DT, and then the DL. Is the DL inside the DT? Nope. DD. Okay, and then description definition. Perfect. So we're going to do DD for description definition. DD. We're going to add that here. Relational databases have a fixed structure for its data. Excellent. And we're going to change that for the rest of these as well. So we have more DTs. All right. And DD. Yep. More DTs. So this is DT for description term. DT, description term. DT, description term. Excellent. And then we'll add beautiful. We'll put that there. Excellent. So it's on the right thing. And then I'll just give it a little bit of indentation so it knows, so that we can know what it is. All right. Perfect. And then, nice. Yeah. So we also have Ahmad here telling us that non-relational databases are the structure that can be, the structure can be changed inside each entry. That's absolutely right. So we're going to throw a DD, just copy and paste here for the non-relational. Boom. And I'm going to add some indentation here. And so we're saying non-relational databases have a structure that can be changed in each entry. Beautiful. Yep, and relational databases are based in tables and columns and rows. That is absolutely correct. We can add that to our relational description. And are based on tables, columns, and rows. I really love how much we were like collectively creating this documentation together, by the way. Like, this is how it should work. Oh, that's okay, learner. We gonna miss you, friend. It's very late where everyone is, especially where learner is. So thank you so much, learner, for hopping on. We appreciate you always, and we'll see you next stream. So you've been such a wonderful help to this entire team. So can't wait to see you soon, learner. And then, yep. And then Ahmad had mentioned non-relational databases are based on collections and documents. So I'm going to add that as well. Very, very true. And are based on collections and documents. Yep. Love it. All right. And yeah. Oh, we can add more than one. Perfect. Thank you, Ahmad. We can add more than one description for each term. So I'll add some more descriptions here. Another one. So we'll do DD for this. No, I think we filled out relational a bit. So I'll move on to for hierarchical, for example. DD. And we'll close it up. Thank you for the tip, my friend. All right, and so for hierarchical, right? Hierarchical, just to give a background, hierarchical databases were developed in like the 1960s, 1970s as well. Developed in the 1960s, 1970s. Oh, and it didn't even. 1970s, and it looks similar to a family. Exactly, I was just about to say they look similar to a family tree. And what Lerner had said is that they're very similar to an organizational chart. So we are on the same wavelength. That's right. And look similar to a family tree / organization chart. Boom, y'all, we are learning together. I love this. This is like the best thing that could happen here. Exactly. And family tree or organizational chart. So sometimes they think of things as like the parent-child relationship, right? So a single object, we'll call it object or a thing here, can be a parent, and then it'll have one or more objects below, or you can also call that nodes below, which are children, the children to that one thing. But no child can have more than one specific parent in the hierarchical example. So folks say that the Windows registry is one example of this system, right? Excellent. So we have that information for the hierarchical, and then let's get into object-oriented as well. So we have object-oriented. We're going to do a description here. DG, love it. And our wonderful learner. Yeah. Oh, yes, Ahmad. Just like HTML structure, right? We see all this HTML structure. It's all like pretty much nested and looking like a tree or looking like an organizational chart. That is very, very similar, right? It looks so similar. So thank you so much, Ahmad. And then Lerner had said for our object-oriented situation, object-oriented is something like there's a lot of people represented by people, and each have their own names and ages. That's right. That's a great example of that. And how I would also say for our object-oriented database, right? Object-oriented database, and if you have not heard of the term object-oriented before, it might be a little hard to wrap your mind around. But object-oriented databases store and they store and manage objects. Store and manage objects on a server's disk. We'll get into all of that in a second. But its information in an object-oriented database is represented, store and manage objects, and is represented in the form, store and manage objects, and is represented in the form of objects, just like object-oriented programming. Object-oriented programming. Okay, so if you haven't heard the term object-oriented programming, it's probably something that you actually might see a lot in your future for the software engineering profession. So that's going to be something that you'll definitely want to do a little bit of research on as well. But for now, we're going to take a pause here because we are at time, but we're going to preview what our documentation looks like so far, right? We have a lot of good information here. So we have our what is data, we have our what is a database, what's the difference between data and databases. And then we have a brief history on databases and then different types of databases so we can know the differences between that. And then what we should also get into, I think we might save this for our next session, but the difference between relational databases and non-relational databases, all right? So difference between relational and non-relational databases. And how all of that is helpful for folk who are trying to learn all this. So this is what we're going to do so far for today. And let's run some tests and see what we still have left to do for tomorrow. So let's run some tests. I think well, let's run some tests. Okay. So we have now instead of 4, we have 5. The first child of each main should be a header element. Excellent. And then we have to continue on with the rest of our technical documentation. But today, y'all, we've learned a lot, right? We've learned a lot about not only like what is data, right? But we've also learned about the history of databases. We got a little bit of a history lesson with our colleagues today. And we also have broken down what are some different types of databases, right? And how to understand what the differences are between like a hierarchical database, relational, non-relational, or NoSQL. We're going to get into more of that, and that's what Couchbase is. And then all of the other examples of databases as well. So object-oriented being one of them. So we're going to dive back in tomorrow and build out more of this, more of the technical documentation. We're learning about databases in the process. If you have any questions about this whole process or about the streams, always know that you can hit me up in the comments or hit me up on Twitter if you use Twitter at Nyah Macklin Dev. You can also hit me up in the Discord server for Bad Website Club. Always so much love. But it's just such a pleasure, y'all. It's just such a pleasure just being with y'all, learning alongside y'all, us all learning together. Like, this is how I feel like classroom should be, right? It should be students, doing research in real time, like helping each other learn, right? Rather than just a teacher, on the blackboard, just notating to you what is something, but it should be more collaborative like this. This is my goal for education, but let me get off my soapbox. But I'm so glad that y'all have had fun today. Thank you, learner, for joining us and for staying even beyond your bedtime. That is such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Ahmad and Ramon and the Bad Website Club. I'm so glad this has been informative for you, Ahmad. You've been providing so much value to this team, so thank you. And then thank you as well, learner, and everyone who stayed for this session. We're going to get more into databases tomorrow, but I hope you've had fun learning so far, and I can't wait to see y'all again. So much love. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, and I will chat with y'all as soon as possible, bright and early for y'all. Catch you tomorrow. All right. Much love. See y'all soon. Bye.